Our next set of examples for Module 1.2, still talking about domain and range of functions, gives us a couple of graphs in questions 4 and 5 here. And we're reading from the graph, what is my domain and what is my range? In the last lecture video for examples 1 through 3, we had equations and we were finding domain from an equation. Note that we didn't find range from an equation. It's a lot harder to determine what, or I guess I'll say a lot more complicated to determine what your output values are going to be, what your range values are going to be from an equation. So where I am not going to ask you to do that, generally speaking, in an algebra class to find the range from an equation. Occasionally, for some simpler examples, we might, but to give good examples of what we mean by range and come back and look at domain and range again, it's really helpful to think of it from a visual perspective. So here's a graph, here's a visual of a function, and we're not going to worry about the equation of the function here, just the visual representation of the function and how do we think through domain and range given a visual like this. Recalling that the domain of a function is all the possible input or x values, and the range of a function is all the possible output or y values. Then on a graph, since the input values are described by the horizontal x-axis and the output values are described by the vertical y-axis, then the way we're going to read this graph, if we're thinking about input values and domain, we're going to think horizontally. All my x values, reading the graph left to right. And specifically then, I note that I don't have any values farther to the left. The function has no representation to the left of -4 here. So my input values start at -4. And then moving left to right, I see that the function continues moving to the right. And in fact, I have an arrow at the end of my function, meaning it continues in the direction to the right forever. My domain then is starting at -4 and continuing to the right forever, continuing to positive infinity. -4, infinity is how I'm reading left to right on this graph. That's all of my domain values. For the range, we're thinking vertically for the y values. I want to see how far down and how far up does the function go. And I see in terms of how far down does the function go, the lowest the function reaches is a y value of -2. Then it proceeds up from that lowest y value of -2, it proceeds up, and the arrow on the end of the function means that it continues. And it continues forever. Even if it's not going up quickly, it continues moving up forever. So my range, my y values, are everything starting from -2 and moving up forever to infinity. My range, my set of all y values then are all the y values from -2 to infinity. And there's my domain and range read from the graph of this function. Let's do that one more time with question number 5, another graph, where again we're looking for domain and range. And again, domain is all the input or x values, and we're asking how far to the left and how far to the right does this function move. And I see that in terms of horizontal movement of the function does not proceed any farther left than this x value of -3. It starts moving from there and moves to the right and ends as far as its horizontal movement, ends at this x value of 2. Although the open circle on 2 means that we're not actually including 2. The closed circle on the left-hand endpoint means that we're including that endpoint. But the open circle on the right-hand endpoint means we're not including that endpoint. So we've got everything, as we're reading left to right here, we've got everything from an x value of -3 through an x value of +2, but not including the x value of +2. Then our domain is exactly that, from -3 to +2, including -3, but not including 2. Then for range, we're looking at vertical movement. How low does the function go and how high does the function end up moving? In terms of the bottom of the function, we see that the lowest it approaches is a y value of -5, then it moves up from there. And actually it moves up and then it moves down. We're not concerned with it repeating the up and down movement here. I just want to know how high does the function end up moving, and that is here when it reaches its peak at +4. If it turns down after that, that's fine, but how high does the function end up going? The highest y value is +4, so the lowest y value is -5, and it moves up from there and reaches a highest y value of +4. Then -5 to +4 are all of my y values, all of my range values, and neither one of those endpoints is an open circle. We're not missing any y values at the endpoints or in between, so we've got everything from -5 to +4, including both of those endpoints, and there's my range, my set of all output values or y values, the vertical movement of the function.